Hello, everyone, and welcome to another story of one story. We will have our guest joining us shortly. If you haven't checked her page out, it is at terminal.joy. I definitely recommend you going and watching it. Hello, I see a few of you joining us. Hello, great morning, Valerie. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you for asking. So today I wanted to talk about a topic that I think quite of us find it very, very important, right? So you actually are a caregiver to a cancer patient and you created Terminal Joy. So tell us a little bit of your story. How did you come to creating Terminal Joy?
Okay, I'll try to keep myself from rambling too much. This past year, actually, both my mother-in-law, Bev, and actually my dad too, both passed away from terminal cancers, in the last year. Bev in May, and my dad in December. Um, Sorry.
No, no worries.
um,
Yeah,
so
sorry for your loss. I mean,
it's
it's always hard
okay.
to lose something.
So my mother-in-law and I were really close. I've been married to my husband for over 20 years, so we've been a family for a long time. Our whole family is really close. And Bev first got diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer in 2016. Um, I always think about her cancer in two phases. So she had the first phase where, she had chemo and she had radiation and she had a lumpectomy and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then she was clear and, she beat it and she was cancer free. And then after a couple years, maybe 3.5 years, it returned in 2020 in October. And I think she, especially with triple negative breast cancer, is quite aggressive and often comes back. And I think we all knew that, and I think she knew that, but it was genuinely a surprise when it did come back. And when it came back in 2020, they said, there's nothing we can do. Like you're now terminal, stage 4. And what we can do is offer you treatments to, prolong your life. And she was told, you have months, not years. She actually ended up living 2 years and 8 months after that terminal diagnosis. And throughout that time, she just showed so much grace and positivity and joy and thankfulness for the life that she was living. She got up every day and she did her best every single day. Our family is a Christian family, and Bev's faith was very strong. But in the last couple of years, when she knew that, unless she received some healing from God, which she always believed for, that if she didn't, that she was going to die. And she really showed me, especially showed our whole family how to live by faith. And she kept a bunch of journals, especially in those last couple of years, where she wrote down any song, any word, any scripture, anything that anybody said, her thoughts just about staying strong and living for today. And she felt that God had a purpose for her life, even though she didn't have her whole life left ahead of her that she thought she was going to have. And so after she did pass away, I took her journals and I read them. Is it something that she talked about a lot? She said, read my journals, take them. They're in my drawer. Make sure you read them. And one night, several months after she passed away, I feel like God woke me up in the middle of the night and basically said, share her journals. I think all of us know somebody that has a challenging diagnosis, whether it's terminal or not. And it's my hope that by sharing what she wrote in her journals, that someone else in that position can gain some strength, even if it's just for one day, or if it's for a week, or it's for a few months, or until the end, that they have something to hold on to. I think we don't have a lot of, we don't have the opportunity to walk. Like if you've been diagnosed, and especially if you have a terminal diagnosis, there's not a lot of places you can go to walk walk through that with someone or read what someone else's journey was like during that time, because they're probably already gone. So I think it's just a unique opportunity to minister to others.
Definitely. And that's
Yeah.
one of the things that when I came across your page, I just loved because at first, I saw it and there was like positive messages, inspirational, and the Bible verses. I'm a very, very big believer on faith and growing your faith. And there is challenging days
Yeah.
that even the strongest person, I think, might struggle with that.
Yeah.
And I think every time you're told bad news and bad news, it's a little harder, or at least for me, to hold on to, God's still here. And
Yeah.
when I came across your page, seeing your mother-in-law's journal, that even until death, she was, whether she was believing for a miracle or just growing closer to God, I just thought it was such a beautiful page. And, I'm glad that God spoke to you. I'm glad that she kept telling you and insisting for you to do this, because I think she knew how important those journals and that message was.
Yeah.
So even though she couldn't do it, I'm very blessed that you're able to do it for her now.
Yeah.
So everyone, whether they're diagnosed with breast cancer, I think a lot of people, you have breast cancer, you have lung cancer, things like that. And they kind of just put us in a chart, right? Like, this is what you have, but not two people go through the same experience, go through the same symptoms. And so what we need might be different, right? How did you know, like you said, there was two different instances that she got diagnosed with breast cancer. How did you know what she needed? Did she address it to you, or, what, as a caregiver, as her daughter, how did you know what she needed?
Um, Again, I think this is sort of split into two times. Like the initial diagnosis was very much, we're going to fight this, and here are the steps that the doctor has given, whether it's however many rounds of chemo and then radiation and a scan and all that kind of stuff. Um, I think this is different for any person, but and depending on personality and your situation, how close you are as a family, and I think for Bev, anybody who knew her knew how positive she was, and we knew as a family, and I knew her well enough to know that she wanted encouragement to fight and to get through her treatments and get through the next thing. So as long as there was a plan on the horizon, she was intent on focusing on that hurdle and getting through that hurdle. So when she was initially diagnosed, it was a shock. We had a family wedding that weekend. And it's funny that you have to still do normal things like family weddings after you've been diagnosed. But what I knew that she knew she needed was just encouragement, and we're here for you, and you're going to fight this. I know that her and I communicated a lot with just simple, like we would send songs to each other, like worship songs, encouraging songs. She would make a playlist and she'd put those on and she would listen to them. Anything that just made her feel strengthened. Initially I would just send her some texts and just say, like, especially when she first found out, it was, I'm here for you. When you want to talk, let me know. Like, you can't be too pushy about it. And always after DARE too, like after her diagnosis, both times, she'd emerge and come out, and we'd get together as a family and kind of just hold hands and and talk about it.
Yeah. Well, and then I definitely think communication, like you said, I hear you saying that you message her, you just want her to know there. So there was constant communication between you and her, and her son, your husband, for many years. So you had that closeness to her. For for myself, I think there was times where, especially during treatment, you can't really think properly sometimes. You're emotional sometimes, so you don't really know what you need, I feel, at times. And you kind of listen to the doctors and you want to try your best, you want to be positive, but you're sick. And I felt like a lot of times I didn't really even know what I
Yeah.
needed, to be honest.
Yeah.
So communication with my husband, communication with my mom, communication with friends of what I needed was so important for me to speak up. But from your point of view or from your side, how important do you think the communication was, like between you and her or you and your husband?
Hmm. Well, I think the person that is diagnosed in your family, they don't want to feel alone, and they also don't want to feel like they're treated any differently. And so I think it's very easy to just kind of back up and think, I don't know how to approach. I don't know how to ask about this. I don't know how to communicate. But you have to put yourself aside and you have to think about what the other person is going to want and need. I'm a pretty practical person, so I found that just asking a simple question of um, like just being direct. Can I, how are you feeling today?
Yeah.
Would you like to go for a walk today? Would you like to go for coffee? And if not, that's okay. Give them an out, because like you just said, you didn't know
Yeah.
sometimes even what you wanted, and you might have thought, oh, I don't want to go out today, or I don't feel like this. But if a family member says, hey, you want to go for a walk, or you want to do this, or if not, that's okay. I'll try again tomorrow. Like then it's up to you to make that decision.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
And going into that, like you said, you used to go and just like be very direct with her.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it is needed just because for us, sometimes time frames, we really, it goes by fast. Sometimes it goes slow.
Yeah.
I personally suffer from insomnia. So to me, it's just like, I don't want to think so much about like, oh, I didn't get enough sleep, or I was up all night struggling, things like that, or like you said, I just don't feel like it. But getting that extra little motivation to kind of push to go do something and get you out of your routine is nice.
Mm-hmm.
um, that being said, day to day, right? She went through it twice, right?
Yeah.
So somebody going through chemo might be a little bit different going through radiation. Someone,
Mm-hmm.
going through just doctor appointments or even getting ready for exams like a PET scan, like things change day to day,
Yeah.
right? And we know what it's like, right? To not feel good. Like we kind of start maybe seeing a pattern. It's
Yeah.
always inconsistent a little bit, but we see a pattern. You, as the caregiver, what is something that stayed consistent with you? So, like for me, I might need isolation today just because I had a hard day, I don't feel good. You don't know that, right? Like your
Yeah.
husband doesn't know
Yeah.
whether it was a hard day for me or if it was a really productive day for me. But what did you do that was consistent, whether I had a good day or bad day? Because you don't know. So, what was consistent in you communicating with her or you offering support to her?
Yeah. Well, I think this is both me and my family. Like I know that especially after the second diagnosis, as a family, we ended up getting together every weekend, whether anybody was well or like whether Bev was well or not. Um, and we just made sure that we spent time together, every Saturday or every Sunday, spending time, and we would be careful to take note whether she was tired or up for it, or we would just be let her hang out in her bedroom, but we would be in the living room. And I think those times hanging out together as a family were really important. I think as far as it goes from my communication with Bev, um, I was used to talking to her on the phone every single day. um, Again, sending her texts and messages. She she was such a positive person, and she really thrived on positivity and looking forward to things, and knowing that people were praying for her. So one thing that I was able to do was I set up a Facebook page that was a private page for all of her friends. She had a lot of friends around the world because they lived in various places for their work, where I could give updates, and kind of be the middle person for everybody asking how is she doing, how is she feeling, and that kind of thing. And she would post there when she felt like it, and then her friends could offer their support. They could pray for her, and it made a really lovely community for her where she felt a lot of support. And I know that was that was almost a daily thing for us.
You know, I've never heard that, and I don't think we've talked about that. So I think
No.
I'm so glad that you brought that up because
Yeah.
um I think that's amazing. Like that would have been really helpful, I think, because I know one of the things that I struggled with was I kind of put a lot on my husband. I'm like he would communicate with me or like my mom, and it was basically, I don't want to talk to nobody, or,
Yeah.
I'm just tired. So it really was put a lot on them to text everybody, even though I was getting some messages or voicemails, which was nice, but I did feel a little bit, at times anxious because
Yeah.
I felt like I'm not reaching out to them, but I didn't have the strength. Sometimes I couldn't even speak without getting like suffocated or out of breath. And I did feel a little bit bad for not responding.
Yeah.
And so my family took it upon themselves to be messaging, doing those phone calls.
Yeah.
But what you mentioned right now, you're like, you know what? It was one place,
Yeah.
one message, and everybody knew. So I'm glad you
Yeah.
shared that because that's something I think I
Yeah.
would have never thought of. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
There's also talking about that, like I wasn't feeling well. Sometimes I needed some space and not necessarily like for a specific reason, but I just felt like I just wasn't in the right mindset for whatever reason.
Yeah.
How did you know? You kept everybody informed and things like that.
Yeah.
And you said she was very positive, right? But even the most positive person, godly filled woman might need some space, right? Especially you
Yeah.
said the second time, she had
Yeah.
cheated. And I think at one point maybe she needed space. How did you know when that moment came, and how did you giving space to her look like without still, without really pushing away too much?
I don't know. I thought about this question and I'm not sure I really have an answer for you. Like I said, we're a pretty close family. So I think if somebody needs space, and especially if Ben needed space, she would just say, like, I'm not up for getting together today. And because we were together a lot, we did communicate a lot. If she did ask or she did say, then, we would obviously do that for her. And she would let you know when she was kind of ready to surface again. But it actually didn't happen very often. Um, and I think if somebody needs space, you give them that, but then you return. You come back the next day with you know, not so much questions. You don't want to bombard people with questions, but it was, hey, I hope you had a good night.
Yeah.
Call me when you're ready, type of thing. So you're saying I'm still here, but I know you're going through a lot, and I'll be here waiting for you when you're ready. I think is a really important message.
And I think I keep hearing how great of your conversation and communication was with her, and I think there is different types of caregivers. Yeah. So you were like the immediate 911 right there front line, right? So it was very comfortable for her to say, hey, I need space, hey, I don't want this. Or I love especially the part where she's like, read my journals, right? Like that's something very personal to somebody. So for her to constantly tell you that, I feel like the comfort was there, right? Yeah. But then there's family members that you love so much, but maybe you haven't seen, in a long time, right? We have our immediate family, we have our family that we wish were next to us, but they're still far away. So you coming up with that page kept everybody informed, right? But she didn't really, it sounds like she didn't really need space from you or, her immediate caregivers or her immediate family. But when it comes to like the outside, right? Like maybe grandchildren, cousins that they love you, they want to see you, they want to show their support, right? So with you, she was very direct, like, hey, I need space, hey, I need this. But sometimes it gets a little harder when all those other loved ones, like our grandchildren, our, siblings, things like that, might want to show us how much they love us, but we don't feel comfortable enough to say to them, I need space, right? Because they're doing it out of a place of love. Did you ever have to have those hard conversations with other family members of, let's give her some space? So not necessarily for you, but like for other people, or maybe friends, right? Maybe you said she traveled a lot, so it's not such an immediate family. Did you ever have those hard conversations with someone about, or maybe not giving all the information?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, this is where I think it's important. And again, I know not everybody has, maybe they don't have a caregiver, they don't have a larger family that's around them. But, my father-in-law, her spouse, Roger, was always really good at protecting her and keeping a boundary if we needed to. And never had any fear in saying to somebody like, today's not a good day to visit or something like that, because your number one priority has to be the person who's not well. And it's okay to, I found that most people are truly, if they're truly your friends and they're your loving family, they should understand that either you're not well enough, you're not up for it, it's too much. Like, again, there's so many stages of cancer. Sometimes there's high energy and you really don't feel like you have cancer, but you're going to these treatments and I feel good. And then there's, the other days where, especially during maybe getting closer to the hospice time, that there's just very minimal energy. So deciding who and what you have energy for is really important. And I think the close family members, whether it's the spouse or the child or a friend, needs to be able to run that interference for you. And it's your job as a family to put that fence around your loved one when there needs to be one. I think it's nice if you have a family member that's not necessarily yes, I was a close family member and lived down the street, but my father-in-law, Roger, was the one, living with her and taking care of her day-to-day stuff. And I think it's wonderful if you have someone else like me or my husband or another one of the kids to be able to keep the other family members, the other friends, the people that come out of the woodwork, to communicate with them, because that's a lot for the spouse. That's a lot for the, like you just said, like your husband.
Yeah.
That's like a full-time job, trying to keep everybody informed, because everybody wants to know about the cancer, what's happening, what's the next step, what's the treatment, how is she feeling, what can I do, can I make a meal, right? There's a lot of that kind of stuff. So if the immediate caregiver doesn't have to do that, I say assign it, like literally ask a couple people in your family or the best friend who is sitting there going, I need to do something, I want to do something, please give me something to do. And you can say, look, make a list of all the people that need to be informed and make a Facebook page or make a WhatsApp, group chat, or make a group email or something, for the neighbors and all the people that want to know, so they can ask you. And so I would get a lot of questions. Do you think I can see Bev this week? What could I bring her? What could I do? Or somebody would say, I'd really love to bring a lasagna or something.
Yeah.
And if I, you never want to shut somebody down that's really trying to be part of somebody's life, but you can find a way for them to help or to be there without using up your loved one's energy if they don't have it. So, I'd often make a suggestion like, I don't think Bev's up to seeing anybody today, or I would talk to Roger about it and say, so-and-so wants to visit, like, what do you think, right? And he would sometimes say, yeah, I actually think she'd really love a visit. Like, let's do that. Or it would be, we've got enough food for this week, but, if you'd like to, do something else or do this, or I can let you know when she's up for a visit, or making another helpful suggestion.
And going into that a little bit more, so like you talked about some people saying, oh, I want to bring her something, or I want to spend time with her, right?
Yeah.
I think where we get bombarded, right, with everyone trying to help is at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
It's always, this is a situation, and everybody's like, let me help. How can I help? What can I do? And I love that you already gave some examples of that. But can you just tell us a little bit, so when people offer their assistance, like, is there an advice or something that you want people to know before you even do it? Because I think everyone has the right heart, right? Everyone wants to be there, but I just want to give an example, because I have a lot of peers, friends, just our cancer community, and I've heard stories of people thinking someone's going to be there, or like, oh, I have a support group, right? It's nice to be like, if I need someone, I know that there's a lot of people there for me. But I've heard a lot of stories where sadly, when that moment came, because that person did offer help, they thought they had someone and then they were shut down. And even though they might not show it to that person, we've talked about it, and it's just a very sad moment. And when you think someone's there for you and then you have nobody.
Mm.
So you actually, went through this twice,
Yeah.
and you kind of already knew a little bit from the first one who helped and what, set some boundaries and assign people things. But if you were to tell someone today, what advice could you give someone, like, hey, if before you say anything, before you say, hey, I'm going to bring you food when you need it, or before they say, hey, I'm going to go to doctor appointments, can you tell us or give us a little advice of what that really means? Like, it's a commitment, and or
Yeah.
maybe that person's going to expect it. So what advice would you give before anybody offers their assistance?
I don't know. I think I thought more in terms of like, what is actually, you have to think about what is actually helpful. And like you said, when you're newly diagnosed, a lot of people, you often get flooded
Yeah.
with help. And that's often when you're newly diagnosed is
Yeah.
not necessarily the time when you need like
Yeah.
5 lasagnas. And
Yeah.
because chances are you're actually feeling pretty good, and like you haven't started treatment yet, so you're sort of like wanting to put a pause on all that help and say, when what I want people to know is that it's a long road, whether it's terminal or not. I've seen both. Is that
Yeah, I think like you're on the right track. I think everybody automatically thinks, oh my God, she just got this. How can we help her? I need to help her right now. She needs us. But what you're saying is like, pace yourself. It's okay.
yeah,
Maybe not just offer it at the beginning. Maybe bring it up again a month later, 3 months
yeah,
later, because like it is a long road. And I think a lot of people don't
yeah,
know that. And
yeah,
I feel like a few people are, even going into remission, right? Like at
mm,
one point she was in remission,
yeah,
she was happy. But even then, still offering your support,
yeah,
will be helpful in a different way, not
yeah,
just at the beginning.
yeah,
So yeah. Mhm.
yeah. I think you know our tendency as just humans is to just be able to do something right away, and often it does come from a place of like, oh my gosh, you're going through this, I really want to help. But that's just our natural response because it makes us feel like we did something, like we contributed, we did something right. um, but I think you know what the person needs to hear is that I'm going to be here for you, um, and you need to understand the length of their treatment and how long that's going to be. um, I did come up with a few things that like I think are helpful for when you have somebody who's newly diagnosed. And there's lots you can do. Like it'll depend on your relationship and also on your personality and your strengths as a person. Like what I found even in our families that we all have different strengths. Some of us are good at the practical needs. Others are good. Others, some of us did well with the hospice, and others of us didn't. And I'm good at practical things, like physical things, and someone else might be really good at just sitting, when it's really uncomfortable. So you have to first, when you're offering help, know what you can do and what your strengths are. um, I think initially when someone's diagnosed, I think just letting them know I'm here for you, I'm going to be here for the long haul, and just treating them like like you've treated them all along. They're still
Yeah.
a normal person. Yes, they might be facing something really big, but they don't want doom and gloom. I think especially my mother-in-law, like she didn't want anything negative. She didn't want any doom and gloom and like the, oh my gosh, you have cancer, and just like I'm feeling terrible about like I'm just feeling terrible about this.
Yeah.
I think just treating them like you normally do, and they still want to do fun things. They still want to go for dinner, and they still want to, go out with their friends, and they don't necessarily want to talk about the cancer all the time. And so you can say, do you I just want you to know that you can talk about the cancer and the treatments with me, and I will listen. And if you, it's okay. It's also okay if you don't want to, because not everybody wants to talk about it. Bev often didn't want to talk about, especially when she had a terminal diagnosis. Like she didn't even want to talk about it with family. Everything was just, what's the next treatment? What are we doing? What are we looking forward to? And there actually wasn't a lot of conversation beyond that about the elephant in the room of, this is a terminal diagnosis. Whereas like my dad and my mom, when he got his terminal diagnosis, they talked about it all the time. My mom would be sitting on the couch with him and she'd be talking to me and she'd be like, okay, so when dad's not here anymore, like, and it would be so shocking because I had these two opposite experiences where Bev was all forward thinking and positive and really trying to not let anything negative in, although she knew she was ill, but it's just something that she didn't want to talk about with everybody. And you had my parents talking about, when I'm dead, this is what I'm going to do, or this is what you need to do, and we need to make all these changes and stuff. So I think when it comes to help, I think you need to be specific, and if you truly can't offer something, you can be instead of saying. I think the biggest thing you don't want to say to your friend or your loved one is, "Hey, let me know what I can do for you." Yeah. Because I'm sure you've had people say that to you, and I'm sure you think to yourself, like, I'm already thinking about all these other things, and I don't want to have to come up with something for you to do for me. Even though it comes from a place of saying, like, I'm willing to do anything for you, but I just don't know what to do. And I think most people don't know what to do and they don't know what to say. And unfortunately, some people then don't say anything or do anything because they don't know and they're scared, right? So I think you can be, yeah.
Oh, no. Well, I know that we're talking a lot of people, how they can help and what they can do. And I've had so many amazing people like help me in different ways. I just get random packages here and there, things I didn't know I even needed, but I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy. They, from just comfortable clothing, warm, just because I'm always cold, cooking books or just recipes, things like that. So that comes from a great place. But we know that even if it's coming from a great place, you're constantly there, you constantly following up with people. It takes a lot, to be honest, right? I've been to a hospital many times, right? So now that person that's in charge of communicating to everybody might be up all night communicating it, because it's not just like, hey, they're in the hospital. People want follow-up, right? Like, why? What happened? What's going on? Yeah. So that person that's, from the bottom of the heart, they love their family and they want to communicate and just be there. And maybe they are doing those cooking meals. Maybe they're washing your dishes, whatever it is that having. It is overwhelming, right? Yeah. At times, or it could just be, taken away from your sleep, whatever it might be. There has to be time for you to do self-care, right? I don't know. I always tell people, I don't know how my husband does it. I always say he's like Superman or something. I really have no idea, because yes, he takes care of our family. Yes, he takes care of me. But I say he's Superman because he still finds time to work on himself, to make sure that he's getting, not just a quick bite. Like, he actually sits down, he makes himself a healthy meal. He makes time to go to the gym. He makes time to, even just spend time with the Bible. Like, he just does it all. And I love that he's able to take that time for himself. So for you, your family, again, it's been a long road. Yeah. Right. What would you say, or how important is it to do self-care, I think, in your opinion?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that looks different for everybody in every season in different situations. I think as a family, when your loved one, especially if their diagnosis is terminal, or you don't know where it's going or what's going to happen, I think you live in this almost like parallel universe of, my dad is dying and that's really serious, and I feel immense grief over that, and uncertainty because you don't know what the road is going to look like. But then on the other hand, um, life still goes on. You have to do your laundry, you have to go get milk, you have to feed your kids. Somebody gets sick and they need to go to the hospital for a broken arm. It has nothing to do with with your loved ones. You, as a family member, you're sitting there, and everyone else's life is also going forward, and you're doing all these forward things, and yet your loved one is facing something really challenging. They might die, or maybe they are dying. It's really hard to hold those two things together. So I think it's really important to keep in mind that that's okay to sit there, that you can still do normal things, and that's okay, and you don't have to feel guilty about that. Like, I just want to, go out for dinner tonight, or I'm going to go do this. I think a lot of caregivers feel like I can't do that, or I should feel guilty about that because I shouldn't be enjoying that when my loved one is dying. But I found in both cases that my loved one, the loved one wants you to enjoy your life, and your loved one wants you to tell you about those fun things. And the last thing they want you to do is stop everything and stop having fun and stop taking care of yourself. And I think it's important, my mom said I said something really important to her that helped her when my dad got his terminal diagnosis. He was given 4 months to live last year, and my mom was wrecked. Like, when you get that information, you don't even know how you're going to get out of bed the next morning. And I just remember saying to her that the despair and the grief comes in waves. And you're going to, you feel terrible today, and you're going to feel terrible for a long time, but that it goes up and down. So you may feel that horrible dread for the next week or two, but then all of a sudden you wake up and it's almost like your body adjusts to this new normal, even though it's terrible.
Yeah.
And you find yourself, okay, I got to go get some milk. So you go and get some milk, and you do your shopping, and you might even enjoy a dinner with family members and everybody together. And then you feel okay for a few, maybe even a few weeks, a few months. Like, there was lots of time, while Bev was terminal, that I would even think to myself, like, I kind of, not that you forget about cancer this week, but you feel okay. You actually will feel okay through it, even though it feels like an impossibility that you can't. And then you'll have a week where you feel terrible, and you feel like, oh man, like, I feel like I can't get out of bed. I'm going to cry today. Like, it's horrible. So it really goes up and down in waves. And I feel like that's, our body just can't handle feeling all that grief all at once, all the time. So, I think that's one way that God helps us to carry it. So I know that doesn't answer your question about like caring for myself. I think there's only so much only so much you can do, and especially when you get to the hospice stage, like, you are in it there every minute, nothing else is happening. And I think it's really important to look around at your life and say, not everything in my life is important right now. Like, if you need to order pizza every single night of the week for the next 3 weeks and not make a dinner because you don't have time, that's okay. If you need to get somebody in to clean your house, you get somebody in to clean your house. Like, there is something you're holding on to that you can drop, because later you can get that time back. And you also, as a caregiver, can't spread yourself. Like, there isn't enough of you to go around. There just isn't. So you have to at some point look around and say, what can I let go of? Like, I remember my mom said that she, after my dad passed away, she came home and she looked at her house and was like, oh my gosh, like, my dining room table's covered in papers, and like all the things I haven't dealt with in the last however many months of, my dad deteriorating, and then her spending every single day at the hospice. She just had to let that go, let those things go. And, there should be time for that later. There should be time to catch up on those things later, but there's not going to be time. You need to take care of yourself, and you can only spread yourself so thin, and you want to spend that time with your loved one.
And I think, that is kind of self-care in a different way if you really pay attention, because I think people do think, hey, how are you practicing self-care? And they're like, well, I'm not working out, I'm not doing this. No, it could also look like I'm giving myself an opportunity to not clean today. I'm giving the opportunity to not cook today. So that's still a form of it, because that still ends up helping you, right? Not worrying about the meals, like you mentioned, just order out, or just, have someone come in to clean, that's still a way that you're helping yourself to not be so stressed and overwhelmed
Yeah.
long term. So I think definitely, and you did mention, it's okay to go to a restaurant and then not feel guilty to tell, your
Yeah.
mother-in-law, hey, I went out for dinner without feeling
Yeah.
guilty. And I think even ourselves, we feel guilty, for not reaching out. So, but
Yeah.
yes, I'm happy when like I address my husband. I seen my husband work out. I seen my husband eat good. Seen my husband take care of himself. It does make me feel good. So, to anyone that is listening today, don't feel guilty if you went out for a nice restaurant, even though we're home.
Yeah.
Like, it makes us happy to see that our loved ones are still happy and that
Yeah.
they're, healthy and they're able to do that. And actually, that might be a day that we kind of want that space. So we actually are even more glad that you're out to dinner.
Yeah.
So no, I think, just understand that self-care doesn't just mean, what am I doing for myself? Like, whether shopping, things like that. Self-care can look like I'm giving myself the space to not be stressed out via not cleaning, not doing dishes,
Yeah.
maybe, staying in, right? That could be self-care as well. You're taking the time for yourself. I just want to thank you so much for being on here today. I know you just launched your website.
Yeah.
So not only did you create a Terminal Joy on Instagram, but you kind of expanded
Yeah.
it to just a little bit more broader so somebody can go there. One thing that they cannot do on Instagram is listen to her playlist. I know you mentioned that she was so positive,
Yeah.
and I personally have my own playlist that I like to listen. There's times that I really feel, especially like on my way to the doctor, for some reason, I'm like, I just need to go to another world.
Yeah.
I need my gospel song. So I put my, my playlist on. And so that's something that anyone watching today, you
Mhm.
cannot find on Instagram. So you have to go to the website, but you can see the playlist.
Mhm.
And, I just thank you so much for sharing all of this,
Thank you.
because it's important to know that just as a patient gets told, the C word, the cancer, a lot of other people, we never really think about that means if there's a cancer patient, there's a caregiver next to them, there's a caregiver behind them, there is a group trying to
Yeah.
assist this person.
Yeah.
And I think we don't speak about it enough. And so anybody watching this, please continue following at Terminal Joy if you have questions regarding um, just, if you're lost and if you just need some guidance of like, how do I do this for my spouse, how do I do this for my child, please be open about it. A caregiver is such an important person, and we need more of you, because it's definitely, we need a community. That's why there's a cancer community. We need each other. But before I let you go, is there any other message that you would like to tell to someone that's listening today?
I think I would just say, I'm not sure where everybody's at in their faith journey. And I know when you get a diagnosis that, um, there's lots of things that go through your mind, and you may already have faith, you may not have any, you may be coming back to it. It may be something you've never considered before, not even thought about God or at all. But I just encourage you to read Bev's journals. That's, she felt that she really truly, you know, I feel like she had a personal relationship with Jesus, and she walked with him until she died, like until the day she passed away. And she got through it with him, and she lived with joy and thankfulness. Like, I know it sounds cheesy and stuff, but I don't know. I didn't know before that, you could be given a terminal diagnosis and then not just want to just not get up the next day. And I'm not saying that she didn't feel like that. She had lots of fear, and there were days that she, I'm sure, thought, how am I going to do this? And I can't get up today. I don't want to leave my kids, my grandkids, my spouse, that kind of thing. But she kept these journals, and they're not actually even journals where she even says I very much. Like, it's not like I went to chemo, I did this and I did that. It's these are all the truths that God has given me today to get through today. And he still has a purpose for me. One of her favorite things that she said that she wrote a few times that I love is, God is still writing my story, and it's beautiful. So I just encourage you that wherever you are in your faith journey, whether you have one or not, that you read her words, because I think there's, um, somebody who already lived this, and that's the strength that she took, into it, that got her through until she passed away. And it was a really beautiful and lovely journey to watch and to witness.
Yeah, thank you for that. I definitely, you can see it in that
Yeah.
page for sure. And I'm happy that her journals are still here and that can continue to inspire and help others.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Valerie, for being here today. I appreciate it so
Thank
much. Thank you,
you,
everybody, for
Nora.
watching. Have a blessed day, and we'll talk
You
soon.
too. Thank you, Nora.
Okay.